They called her just a nurse before they ever learned her name. Not out loud. Not in a way that could be written up or punished, but in the quiet language of looks and pauses, in the way conversations stopped when she entered the briefing room, and in the way rifles were shifted slightly away from her reach. She noticed it all. Nurses always did. They were trained to observe before acting, to read the truth in body language before blood pressure or pulse ever confirmed it. Her name was Lieutenant Ava Mercer, U.S. Navy. Combattre 32 years old, 8 years of service, 3 deployments already behind her, and none of that mattered to the SEALs standing around the operations table that night. The compound was projected in dull green across the wall. Mud structures, heat signatures, overlapping corridors. Somewhere inside, it was a high-value insurgent leader and a data cache worth risking a war over. The team going in was one of the best. SEAL team operators with scars in places most people never thought about. Ava stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, listening. Med support stays with Bravo element, the team leader said. In and out. No heroics. Ava nodded. Once point one of the operators leaned toward another and muttered, babysitting duty. They laughed softly. Ava didn't respond. She had learned long ago that correcting men like this never worked. Not with words, only with actions, and actions required patience. This mission wasn't supposed to go wrong. That was the lie everyone believed before stepping into the dark. The helicopters dropped them 10 clicks out, rotors fading into the Afghan night. The air was thin, cold, sharp enough to cut lungs. Ava adjusted her pack. Medical gear balanced with precision. She carried less weight than the others, but what she carried mattered when everything else failed. They moved in silence, boots finding earth without sound. Night vision turned the world into a ghostly green dream. Ava walked in the center, protected by men who didn't believe she'd ever need protecting. Contact came faster than expected. The first explosion lifted the ground and threw Ava sideways. She rolled instinctively, hands covering her head as dirt rained down. Shouts burst through the comms. Gunfire cracked the night open. Ambush. Left ridge. The SEALs reacted instantly, discipline snapping into place. Ava crawled toward cover, heart hammering but mind clear. Training kicked in. Fear was there, but fear was a tool if used correctly. The man screamed. Ava was already moving. She reached the wounded operator before anyone else. Shrapnel embedded in his thigh, bleeding heavy. Ava worked fast, tourniquet tight, pressure exact, voice calm. You're going to be fine, she said, not as reassurance, but as a statement of fact. Rounds impacted nearby. The team pushed forward, returning fire, but the enemy had the high ground. More explosions followed, control planned. Someone had known they were coming. Minutes felt like hours. Then the radio crackled with the words no one wanted to hear. Charlie element down. We're pinned. The team leader swore under his breath. Extraction was compromised. Air support delayed. The enemy was closing in. Ava finished stabilizing the wounded man and looked up. She saw something the others hadn't yet, at a narrow path along the ridge, barely visible, but there. A flanking route. Dangerous. Exposed. The kind of move only someone desperate or foolish would attempt. She spoke into the comm. There's another way around their position. Silence. Then a voice, clipped and skeptical. Negative. That path's too narrow. And stay with the wounded, Lieutenant. Ava hesitated for exactly half a second. Then another explosion rocked the hillside, closer this time. A SEAL went down hard, chest plate cracked, breath stolen. Ava was moving before permission ever came. She slid beside him, hands already working, eyes sharp. He coughed, blood foaming at his lips. Tension pneumothorax, she said calmly. She pulled a needle from her kit and inserted it with precision under fire. The man gasped, air rushing back into lungs that had been collapsing seconds before. The SEAL stared at her like he'd just seen a ghost. You just saved my life, he rasped. Ava met his eyes. That's my job. Another operator dropped beside them, rifle smoking. He glanced at Ava, then back at the ridge. We're losing ground. Ava looked past him to a fallen rifle lying just out of reach. Its owner was motionless, helmet cracked, eyes staring into nothing. For the first time that night, she hesitated. Then she didn't. She reached out and picked up the rifle. The weight felt familiar. Not strange. Not wrong. The operator froze. What the hell are you? Ava checked the magazine, chambered around with practiced ease. I grew up hunting in Montana, she said quietly. My father taught me before he taught me how to drive. The man stared. You're a nurse. She looked at him, eyes hard in the green glow of night vision. I'm a naval officer, she corrected. And right now, I'm the only one who sees a way out. Gunfire intensified. The enemy was advancing. Ava rose just enough to fire point one shot. Clean. Controlled. The figure on the ridge dropped. Silence rippled through the team. Not from the battlefield, but from disbelief. She fired again and again. Each shot counted. The SEALs followed her line of fire instinctively now, trust forming in the only way it ever could, through survival. The team leader's voice came through the comm, no trace of doubt left. Lieutenant Mercer, take point. Ava didn't answer. She was already moving forward. And in that moment, the battlefield shifted, not because she was a nurse, not because she was a woman, but because she was exactly what the team needed when everything fell apart. The night no longer felt like cover. It felt like a cage. Gunfire echoed from every direction now, sharper and closer, snapping against rocks and steel like angry insects. Ava Mercer moved ahead of the team, body low, rifle steady, breathing measured. Every step she took was calculated. Every second mattered. The SEALs followed her without question. That alone would have shocked them an hour earlier. The ridge path narrowed until it was barely wider than a man's shoulders. One misstep meant tumbling into darkness. Ava signaled for spacing, her hand gestures precise, silent. The team mirrored her movements instinctively now, trust no longer debated but proven. Enemy voices drifted from below, confident, hunting. They believed the Americans were trapped. They were wrong. Ava stopped suddenly and raised a fist. The team froze. She lowered herself to one knee and peered down the slope. Two fighters moved through the shadows, careless, rifles loose in their hands. She didn't hesitate. Point two controlled shots. Two bodies dropped before either man understood he was dying. Point one of the SEALs behind her exhaled slowly. Another muttered, "Damn." They reached the edge of the ridge just as an explosion rocked the valley floor. Charlie Element's last position vanished in smoke and fire. "Charlie's gone dark," someone said over comms. The words hit like a punch. Ava swallowed hard. She felt it, the ache in her chest that came when lives slipped through even perfect hands. Nurses carried that weight forever. But there was no time to mourn. Incoming fire erupted from the left. The team scattered, returning fire, but the enemy had repositioned. Ava slid behind a boulder, dragging a wounded SEAL with her as rounds sparked inches away. Blood soaked his sleeve. "Stay with me," she ordered, already cutting fabric, hands slick but steady. Her medical training flowed seamlessly into combat instinct. She treated him under fire, blocking out the chaos, narrowing the world down to pulse, pressure, breath. A rocket screamed overhead and detonated behind them. Debris slammed into Ava's back, knocking the wind from her lungs. She rolled instinctively, shielding the wounded man with her body. Pain flared. She ignored it. "You're good," she told him, voice calm. "You're not dying tonight." The SEAL stared at her through pain and disbelief. "You're bleeding." Ava glanced down. Shrapnel had torn into her shoulder. She tore open a bandage with her teeth, wrapped it tight, and grabbed her rifle again. "Later," she said. The team leader's voice cut in. "We're out of options. Extraction's still 10 minutes. 10 minutes was an eternity. The enemy surged forward. Ava rose to a knee, firing in controlled bursts, moving between cover points like she had done this her entire life. Every shot bought seconds. Every second bought lives. Then the radio crackled again. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Multiple vehicles. The SEALs exchanged grim looks. This was the moment operations ended badly. The kind that turned into memorials. Ava scanned the terrain. Her eyes locked onto something half buried in the dirt. An old heavy machine gun emplacement. Abandoned, rusted, but usable. She pointed. "That gun. We can hold them there." A A pause. Then the team leader said, "That position's suicide." Ava didn't look back. "So is staying here." She sprinted. Rounds chased her, snapping past as she reached the gun, ripped off the cover, and hauled it upright with raw determination. Her shoulder screamed in protest. She ignored it. She fed the belt, slammed the action, and opened fire. The night exploded. The heavy weapon tore through the advancing fighters, shredding cover, halting the assault in seconds. The SEALs rallied behind her, forming a defensive arc, fired disciplined and lethal. Enemy vehicles skidded to a stop, then reversed under the sudden storm. For the first time since the ambush began, the enemy broke. Ava kept firing until the barrel smoked. Then the helicopters came. Rotors thundered overhead, lights cutting through smoke and dust like salvation itself. The SEALs moved fast, hauling wounded, covering each other, eyes never leaving Ava as she finally let the gun fall silent. She swayed, and a pair of operators caught her before she fell. "You're hit bad," one said. Ava shook her head weakly. "Everyone on?" "All accounted for," the team leader said, voice rough. "Because of you." As they lifted off, the valley shrinking beneath them, Ava finally allowed herself to breathe. The adrenaline drained, leaving pain, exhaustion, and something else, respect. Back at base, word spread fast. Not rumors. Facts. The nurse who advanced under fire. The nurse who picked up a rifle. The nurse who held the line when everyone else was out of options, and O1 called her just a nurse again. Weeks later, during a quiet ceremony with no press and no applause, the team stood in formation as Ava received her citation. She didn't smile. She didn't seek attention. When it was over, one of the SEALs, the same man who had once laughed in the briefing room, approached her. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I was wrong about you." Ava met his eyes. "No," she replied gently. "You just didn't know me yet." She walked away with her medical bag slung over her shoulder, ready for the next call, the next life, depending on steady hands in the dark. Because courage doesn't always wear the title people expect. Sometimes it wears scrubs. If you watch this powerful story on her Brave Stories, subscribe for more true inspired military stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable women. And comment below where you're watching from, your country, your city, or your unit. Your support keeps these stories alive.